This review of Mega Man ZX may contain spoilers and coarse language. If neither of those bother you, then have fun watching and enjoying this review. After the success of the Mega Man Zero franchise on Game Boy Advance, Capcom asked Inti Creates to follow it up, coming up with Mega Man ZX, a game that reintroduces the exploring element the Zero series abandoned and went back in general to being a much more simple story of regular genocidal proportions. Not so much mass. Quite a shame, really. Regardless, this game came out, and was it all Inti Creates wanted it to be? Did it live up to the expectations it had from the previous series? Let's find out, starting with the plot. So the game starts out like so. Ale or Vent are partners with Gyro on a delivery trip. Gyro? I don't. Probably Giroette. I mean, it's Giroette, so probably Giro, but I'm gonna say Gyro. Unknown about what they're delivering. Upon running into Mavericks, aka Mimi Robots, the object turns out to be a biometal, a mysterious substance based off of the Reploids from the past like Mega Man X, Zero, and others. Biometal X fuses with your character to help protect them. Eventually, you start helping a resistance team with Gyro using Biometal Z, though in a fit of rage you see people getting attacked and march to said area, risking yourself and Gyro eventually falling. Biometal X and Z start talking about merging together to save your life to create Mega Man ZX, a fusion of the two metals. Using this, and collecting the rest of the biometals, you start on the process of saving the day from Slither Inc.'s CEO, Serpent, who's using Model W, based off a Wile from Mega Man Zero, from causing large-scale destruction. You know, not mass genocide, just regular genocide. The plot itself has a lot of setup, but the issue is that it takes a while to actually get into the meat of the game. You have to do really dumb missions beforehand and try to learn where every area is, all named after letters instead of anything fun, and once you finally get ZX, the game really starts to kick off. Once you get ZX, you're able to pick off from 4 areas to start with and have fun. With quite a few asterisks after fun. The story itself from beginning to end is fine, and the character designs are pretty radical, with outfits that actually look distinct and futuristic. Though I make it a thing to not compare games unless it's another series of mine from start to finish, I will say that compared to the series before it, Mega Man Zero, these character designs are a huge upgrade. The characters themselves are also fairly memorable and can get some emotions out of you. Like one of them chastising you for having Gyro die, or a medic worried about your well-being and pleading for you to stay safe. I love these guys, and I like helping them. Except for the dickhead telling me that I wanted Gyro to die. Yeah, you're a fucking dick. So since there's a good emphasis on what's going on, what's the meat keeping this sandwich together? The gameplay is fast and hectic, as you control several different biometals and each have different abilities and drawbacks, and you can actually switch back to a human form. First things first, playing as Ale or Vent do have minor differences between them. Ale can crawl faster, but she has more knockback. There are minor side quests that change depending on the character, and some minor narrative differences, but that's about it. You have many unique abilities aside from just jumping and attacking. You can also dash to increase your speed and wall jump with just one wall. As you fight enemies, you'll come across them dropping certain items like health, weapon energy, and extra lives. When you lose all your lives, you die, but otherwise it's straightforward. If you get bigger items, you can attack them to cut them into smaller bits, so you can always get something like health, weapon energy, or E-crystals. Trust me, that may seem annoying at first, but it gets really, really helpful. Biometal X is what you start with, but is something that is eventually tossed away, until you beat the game with both characters. When you use it, you have the ability to charge up a Buster Shot, which can do a lot of damage, but that's all you can really do. Biometal ZX is similar to how Zero played in the Mega Man Zero games, with the exceptions of his phenomenal rolling attack doing tons more damage. At least it feels like it. While he doesn't have too much when it comes to platforming, he does have many, and I repeat, many abilities with combat, and boy is he really fun to fight with bosses. HX is based off of Harpuya from Zero, and has the ability to glide, dash in midair, and use electrical elemental attacks. This one is really nice, but the 3-hit combo for it is annoying to pull off, but the air attack is good. It's definitely the most fun to use when exploring or traversing. The bottom screen also exposes all the weaknesses of bosses and mini-bosses for you, And it will show you the current health bar of anything you're fighting. FX, not the channel, is based off of fighting Fafnir, who has a fire element to it and can shoot lots of bullets very quickly, which is good for easy damage. His bottom screen shows you how to make your bullets fire in custom projectile patterns, and is cool to use. LX is based off of Fairy Leviathan. It's amazing to use underwater because you can properly swim with it, but above ground it's okay, and it does have an ice element attack. The bottom screen for it shows you where hidden items are located, and it also has a small fairy pointing to you where they are. PX, more like PU, cause it stinks! I'm never doing that again. It tries to have this crazy amount of knives it can throw, but the damage it deals is weak, and the range it covers is annoying. It doesn't have any elemental attunement, but if you do activate Overdrive, you can become invincible while dashing, which is pretty helpful. The bottom screen mode for it, though, is helpful, as it helps you find hidden paths and places to interact with when behind foreground objects. We'll have to come back to Model P because, well, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. You also have the ability to overdrive the biometals, with the exception of ZX. This lets you do more damage and add an elemental property to your hits. Very helpful for boss fights, but is a move that is not told to you in-game. While the elemental weakness thing is fine, we'll go into detail about that, the main issue is the game doesn't convey that you need to activate that to actually do that kind of damage without charging. As well, while all the new models you get use the bottom screen, the screen is basically a static image until you get any of them, making the screen feel like unused space until you get a new biometal. For the most part, the level design is simple, with not too much in the way of complex platforming. The game does get more interesting near the end, with added ways to beat stages and the ability to find more items as you explore. There are also hidden areas you can access to let you fill up your sub-tanks easily if you know what you're doing. I'll explain sub-tanks later. There are interesting level gimmicks such as water, ice physics, lava chases, and missiles falling from the sky, to name a few. Enemy placement is also usually fair, barring an exception or two in the stages. I really do enjoy the stages more as they go on, though the fact that they're weaker in the beginning is unfortunate. Especially Area H, which, well, the first part's just a nice line. Very fun. Though, the traveling aspect of this game, being an exploration platformer, a platsplorer if you will, that can be a bit of a chore. These biometals really help make the game much more fun to explore. They have tons of unique abilities that would make exploring otherwise impossible, if that's the kind of exploration this game went for. Mega Man ZX has a platsploring style to it, where you travel to new locations via traversing to them. Also, just start calling them platsplorers now. I mean, we gotta get rid of Metroidvania and roguelike. We gotta fix those terms. As you go to these areas, you run through, fight a boss, save the game, repeat for a while, and shit's legit. The gameplay loop itself works just fine, but there's issues regarding the level design, map, and saving that can really be a bother. For starters, if you fail a mission, there are rarely any save points right before the level begins, so you'll be backtracking pretty badly. While that's not really controversial since it's actually punishing, it still means there's more boring level traversal to do. And traveling in this game, well, it's a little bit more monotone. While the areas are alphabetically labeled, how they're combined is so frustrating to understand, and talking to NPCs in Area X don't lead to any helpful hints for your current mission, instead repeating storyline dialogue instead of being helpful. You're going to need a map when playing this game because finding everything on your own would be a gigantic pain in the ass, and the rules change all the time for them. For instance, Area K, the lava stage, is connected to the city in Area C, but Area D, the highway, is where the previous Model F boss was. Though Model H's areas are all tightly knitted together, which is nice. Another issue is the train servers. See, there's nothing wrong with saving at them, that's easy. The problem is warping. They have random train servers that just can't warp for some reason. This isn't too much of a problem, but it is on certain stages like Area H, where it just ends with that and you have to take a backwards-ass route for some reason. It's nonsensical why these non-warpable ones are in the game. And man, that infernal beeping when you finish a mission too. Oh, That beeping is very annoying, but usually there's a trans server next to it so you can complete the mission. Except in Area J. Yeah, that's not fun. The worst offender of them all is that there's doors that are locked until you beat certain parts of the story to unlock them. Traditionally fun Platexplorers tend to make it so you have to use the upgrades to access new areas, instead of having locks on them for arbitrary reasons. It's not like I made a Platexplorer that did something not annoying like that. But I did. Bosses, however, that's a bit more crazy. See, bosses in this game have two different weakness systems. There's an elemental weakness that you get from model HX, FX, and LX, and you have the location weakness, which is where you do more damage by hitting a special spot. The elemental weaknesses are fine, as they play very similarly, again, to the Zero series, and are a staple of the Mega Man Rock, Paper, Scissors system. The location weaknesses, however, are much more annoying. See, hitting them also damages the biometal, which in turn damages how much weapon energy it gives you. Now this is more pronounced of an issue because of the level scaling for repairs. While damaged, you can still repair it with money, but the scaling for it multiplies. So level 1 to 2 is 200 E crystals, 2 to 3 is 500 E crystals, and 3 to 4 is 1000. That means if you avoid the weak spot but hit it once, just once, literally just once, you're gonna have to fork over 1000 E crystals to fix it. Now look, you could get some freebie hits, or you could also make the prices lower, but you know what? It's just shit. It really is just a shitty system. As the game progresses, you can refight bosses again, before a traditional Mega Man boss refight arena, to increase the level without paying. But this feels like it was tacked on just for the people who got level 3 finishes on accident. It's a very annoying system. The bosses themselves, however, tend to be quite enjoyable. They move around a lot, they can be damaged throughout and let you experiment with your biometals. Except for the Model P bosses. These bosses are annoying for different reasons, with the monkey over here being very fast and his damage being really severe, and the rhino being so fat you have to hit his tiny head over the big fat weak spot. So if you really don't want to fight him again for a level 4 victory, have fun being bored to death. Though good bosses do include the Model H bosses, and the Model F bosses are fun, even if the first one can be predictable. The final boss is enjoyable from the sheer amount of phases and differences, though it's overall a bit more lukewarm on the end because it can be pretty easy. There are some miscellaneous things like side quests you can get from other people in Area X. Here you can get things like extra health items, extra energy crystals to buy stuff, and upgrades like chips to enhance your ability. Some of these side quests are hilarious, like the one where you have to keep sending letters to a girl in the city. She gets more and more aggressive as it progresses, only for it to end on a somber note of the dude getting transferred and saying goodbye, with the girl finally replying. But a shitty dumb stupid one is the first aid quest. You have to go to Area L and grab something and come back. Oh, I hope you didn't forget though. There's no easy way to warp there. So sadly, this quest is the most annoying backtracking repetitive nonsense in the game. I could only do the first stage after fighting the mini-boss in Area H twice before I said, nah, I don't need it. Beating the game with the 2 easy-to-get sub-tanks is just fine. Regardless, really helpful chips can be given out with some of them. Or even better, some can be given out just because you found someone and talked to them. So hey, talk and see whoever has them. Or just use a guide because they're not going to tell you, oh hey, I got a chip. You can also find a few objects like life ups to increase your total amount of health. And there are sub-tanks that you can use to refill your health as soon as you have full health and you grab a healing item. You can use this later and heal yourself during boss fights. There are 2 that are great to find, but as I said, that mission one is shit. And there's another one that's even worse in Area K. This is a fucking dexterity test. It's fucking bullshit. And even better, at the end, you just hit a button that leads to the sub-tank, not the sub-tank itself. I have no idea why they decided that 2 of the sub-tanks should be easy to find, and 2 of them are complete dog shit to get. But hey, as I said, beating it with 2 sub-tanks is fine. If not recommended. For the graphics, this is a very detailed game. The sprite work for the main characters is phenomenal, and the graphical effects like transparencies and overlays look really solid. Bosses and enemies are also animated well, but NPCs are not so magical, with many of them having static idle sprites or Castlevania-esque moving animations. Or no animation at all, either using a warp or a fade out to move them. There are also fully voiced animated cutscenes in the game that are pretty interesting to look at, despite the fact that they use cheap CGI. Context for what you're doing and what's happening with enemies is also very good. Enemies flash white for hits and the game pauses for a moment on really important hits, making them feel satisfying. I said it earlier, but the character designs are also phenomenal, and when you're talking to them in cutscenes, your main character actually does change their facial appearance depending on which model they have. I'd also like to say the backgrounds for areas are very beautiful, looking like hand-drawn imports that really flesh out the game's world. There's tons of them that tell unique stories, like how places look run down or how things have frozen or mossed over as time progressed. They are for sure the prettiest part of the game. For sound, this is where we hit some gold. The music in this game is brilliant, with a huge variety of tracks for areas, along with some pretty good boss songs and intermission songs. I'm quite a huge fan of Area I, for instance. Though I would say the Area A theme is definitely the thing that takes the cake for being the most memorable. I can't blame people for saying it's their favorite. Sound effects in this game are pretty great, with them being a satisfying mix of realistic and fictional, from buster sounds to saw blade spins. My favorite thing is when doing a multi-hit spin attack as Biometal ZX. That satisfying moment of graphics, sound, and gameplay right there. Ah, that's a very good feeling. There is also voice acting in this game, but it's entirely in Japanese, so I can't really say how good it is. I don't know the language. Except for two. Guess why most of these clips I'm Vent? Yeah, Ale can be quite annoying when it comes to grunts, and I'm a bit annoyed that I can't turn that off. But Vent's grunts are more subdued and actually sound tough when it's a big attack. Ale just constantly sounds like every attack is the biggest fucking thing on the planet. No thanks, I'll stick with Vent. But don't worry, Ale, I still like you as a character. Just shut up. So that leads to changes. What kind of changes would I make to this game? Well, the biggest for sure is to make every single save point a trans server, letting the player be able to warp wherever they save. There's no reason for it to not be like that. So be like that. Secondly, we'll be making PX a bit more useful so that, depending on the button presses, you'll do different shuriken attacks. Like hitting R could do a giant circular spread, but hitting B would be a straightforward attack. That would at least make it more viable for specific kinds of enemies, along with making it have less lasting hit stun, allowing it to be spammed more. Though to balance it out a little bit more, it should probably have a little bit less damage so it doesn't compete with FX. Also, instead of holding B down slightly more to make a slight amount more of shurikens come out, maybe instead just make it fire too, because then you can mash it, and mash it. You can just keep mashing it, and you can just keep I'd also make it so progression in most areas is locked off via moves. HX and LX have this to a T with their flight and swimming mobility. FX could easily just punch through some walls, which I don't know why they didn't do that at all. You know, besides for that sub-tank. And PX, well, he has the most unique ability. He has the ability to dash through obstacles that could hurt him. Why the hell isn't there like some big wall that he can't just dash through? That right there is all you need to be able to go through something. The map is the biggest issue with this game's navigation, and is something that could easily be fixed just by having NPCs tell you where to go. Like say, to get to Area K, you should look in Area C. It'll have the right entrance, but it might be blocked off. That would imply you need FX to open the path, and point you to Area C to find it. Having NPCs update to give you hints in areas like that wouldn't hurt too. Something like someone on Area X saying, "You're heading to Area K? I heard Maverick sped up how fast the lava is." There should be a way to slow it down. Is enough to keep someone basically satisfied. They're not saying specifically where it is, but telling you the direction to run in. Some changes with the bosses would be nice too, specifically the Model P ones. The monkey should have a bit more time in decision making when choosing an attack, to make him less of a roadblock at the beginning. The other Model P boss should have its normal and weak spots switched around, and the head itself would be a more interesting weak spot because it becomes much harder to hit when on the highest plane. However, you can always hit it, something you can't do on the main body because of how he turns around. One more thing I do is also make it so that Model X and ZX use the bottom screen. Not to the detail of the others, but make it so it just kinda has a mini-map on the bottom telling you what location you're in. Just take that, plop it here, and boom! That's fine. Oh, also, I would be giving Ale a different direction in voice acting, making her more subdued and having her grunts not as loud. As well, we could use a map redesign. This whole mess up here for Area L is just gone. And we're changing the red saver there to a yellow one, moving L to the end of Area H4, and wow, look at that, it's not shit! Oh, by the way, fuck those two sub-tanks. If the map was remade the way I proposed with Area L, the first aid one can stay as it is. But yeah, those walls? Fuck them! At least get rid of a few of them so it's a bit easier. And make it so you just get the sub-tank at the end. I don't know why they decided to make it so much more obtuse. Oh, also that beeping? No more. No more beeping when you beat a mission. Just have it flash. Perfect. Not everybody's going to have the manual for this game on hand, so I think in the menu it should at least have a move list of all the things that you can perform. At least show you how to overdrive, how to get the elemental attunement, what your charge attacks do, all that fun stuff. And side note with biometal repair, 500, flat rate. None of this scaling bullshit. And not only that, making it so that you can at least get a few freebie hits before it becomes level 3, I think that would be a great necessity. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I'd have to change. So with that, the true problems of the game tend to be little things. Mega Man ZX at the base is a solid game, but problems with the navigation, level design, some bosses, and balance prevent it from being a much better game than it is now. While I won't recommend it extremely, I'll still say cautiously it's an alright game, if you use a map for directions. As it stands on its own, it's kind of a pain in the ass to play, but has the necessary building blocks to be a great game. I've heard the sequel is better, and from what I've played, I'm inclined to agree. But it's not right to agree to something until you've fully beaten it, right? So yeah, this is more of a cautious recommendation. If you do play it, there are a few things I did leave out of this review just for you to discover. Though, of course, if you do like games like this, I recently made an indie game called Necrolepsy. It's available on Steam, and it's in a similar vein to this one. For being a mostly one-man project, I think it's something you'll get a kick out of. I need to pay bills. This review of Mega Man ZX... Oh, wow. I already fucked up at the beginning, huh?